Hare Krishna. So now looking at the part 2 of this section, we discussed about importance of six urges, why this topic is discussed right in the beginning. Now while discussing about six urges, Srila Prabhupada picks up this topic of atonement. And he says in Srimad Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj placed a number of intelligent questions before Shukdev Goswami. One of the questions was, why do people undergo atonement if they cannot control the senses? For instance, a thief may know perfectly well that he may be arrested for his stealing, and he may actually even see a thief arrested by the police. Yet he continues to steal. So very valid question. Now from this point onwards, till if you go down this paragraph and the next paragraph, it all talks about the subject of atonement. Now if we have to discuss this whole paragraph, let us discuss till this point. Real prayashchit. What is the definition of real atonement? So to discuss this point, we will take the help of our PowerPoint presentation. First point Shri Prabhupada brings from Bhagavatam, atonement without sense control is useless. It's like you commit some mistake, willingly or unwillingly, whatever, and then you are punished for that, or you go and say, I am very sorry. So once you go and beg forgiveness and immediately you come out, you do the same mistake. Was there any value of saying sorry? Your words have value if you really mean it and you will not do it again. If you do it again, what is the value? So whatever forgiveness was generated in the heart of the person whom you begged forgiveness, whom you asked sorry, immediately he will again get angry. He would again like to punish you. So again your suffering starts. So what was the value of wasting time of his also and yours also by saying sorry? Atonement is something like that. Prayashchit, where we are going and saying sorry and trying to nullify all the past bad things which have been done. But it says atonement without sense control is useless. And he compares it to elephant's bathing. Parikshit Maharaj compares it to elephant bathing. Now, if you see, Parikshit Maharaj in Canto 6, in Canto 5, he just heard about a series of hellish punishments which are awaiting a person who has lived a life of sin. He was horrified. With great compassion on the living entity, he was asking, how can we save them? What is the process? So Shukdev Goswami did give a process of karmakand. He said, okay, do the atonement. There is the atonement process by which you can nullify the sinful reactions. But Parikshit Maharaj's question was, no. Do not give me such superficial processes. He says, your process of atonement which you are prescribing has no value. Just like an elephant, when it goes to river to take bath, all his dirt is washed out. But then when he comes out to dry himself or to just play, he rolls in the ground. And all his body thoroughly gets covered with sand. What a dull-headed intelligence of an elephant. So he says, this is very dull-headed. Elephants bathing is the perfect example for such an atonement Parikshit Maharaj gives to Shukdev Goswami. So please do not give me such superficial processes. Give me a process which really helps a living entity to get purified. He gives other examples Srila Prabhupada puts in the purport. He says, thief steals even after punishment. We see somebody stealing the property of someone else. The police punishes, the crime department punishes the thief. He takes the punishment, comes out, again steals. Any value to that punishment? This means thief is a low less intelligent person. He doesn't know that he has been punished for doing the act of theft. And again he is doing the same thing. This has to be understood very clearly. Unless the senses are controlled, there is no caution of atonement. There is no benefit of atonement. And then he's another example Prabhupada says. Or regarding the example of thief, he says there are 4 levels of intelligence. What are the 4 levels of intelligence? Let us look at that first. He says the first class is learns the lesson by hearing only. We know what the law is. We know crossing a signal, traffic signal is wrong. Stealing is wrong. We know all these things. We know blowing horn when it is not allowed is wrong. We know driving without a license is wrong. All these things we know. And we follow that. That is first class intelligence. You know, if you are not, we will not follow this, we will be caught and punished for that. So this is the first class. You hear very attentively and then you understand. If you do not hear, understanding is not proper, you commit the mistake again and again. So first class intelligence, understand from Shastras what human life is meant for. First class intelligence does not waste his human life in material pursuits. He does not waste his human life like an ordinary animal. He takes lot of precaution and works hard to get out of the pool of sense gratification. The second class intelligence, he learns by seeing others. He sees others are suffering just by hearing. No, he says, I want to see. Okay, see. He sees others are suffering by committing an act and he does the same act. He sees somebody is drinking alcohol, smoking cigarette day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute, continuous chain smoker or drinking alcohol, and he knows his liver has been spoiled, his lung has been spoiled, still he goes for the same activity, thinking that it's a great act. It's a great act of heroism. But the intelligent person will learn, others are suffering, I should not do it. So he learns to learn by seeing others. But the third class is, he learns by experiencing oneself. He sees others are suffering, but no, let me become a big hero by doing everything nonsense. And then you go through the whole life. The whole life is wasted in learning. One of the nice saying which says, experience is the best teacher, but fools learn by it. Experience is the best teacher, but fools learn by it. Yes. But there is a fourth class who do not even learn by that. Experiences oneself, but still not learns. This is the example Srila Prabhupada gives. A thief is punished, still does not learn that stealing is bad. So, Parikshit Maharaj gives the example of bathing of an elephant. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of stealing by a thief. And then we have another example by Srila Prabhupada, Christians' confession in the church. We see here, Christians' confession in the church. Now, when we're talking of Christians' confession in the church, go to the church every week, Saturday or Sunday, ask for forgiveness, do the forgiveness prayers, and things that it's all done now. Now, immediately you come out, next day, again sinful activities start. Again breaking all principles, no regulations of our sense control, eating anything, drinking anything, anything will do, punish, cheating others, anything will do. Thinking that, oh, at the end of the week we do confession. What is the point of such an atonement? Atonement means to understand that this is human life. I wasted in something very important. Now I have to improve. It is to go step by step higher and higher levels of consciousness. If consciousness is not improving, what is the point of such atonement? And then Srila Prabhupada also says, Namno baladyasya hi papa buddhi, the last one, sins on the strength of the holy name. If somebody thinks I am chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra and all my mistakes will be forgiven, and one does not endeavor to rectify his conditionings, to rectify his impure mentality, and keeps on committing, thinking that Hare Krishna will take care, that is also an aparad, offense to the holy name. It is also an offense to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. Offense number 7. And so, considering this, Srila Prabhupada says, what is the value of this kind of atonement? Suta Goswami replied to Parikshit Maharaj. He agreed, yes, this kind of atonement has no value. Atonement without sense control has no value. Therefore, that is a superficial process where you commit something, you perform atonement, then you again commit some sin. What is the value? Elephants bathing. The Shukadeva Goswami says there should be a process which purifies one of the conditionings. Such kind of process is recommended, otherwise useless. Then sinful activity cannot be countered to pious activity. If you keep on doing it again and again like this, there is no counteraction. Because again and again you make yourself dirty. And one should consider what is the definition of real atonement, which purifies one to the highest level of consciousness. Prayaschit, the word is prayaschit or atonement. The real atonement, what is the definition? Awakening of our dormant Krishna consciousness. When the dormant, the sleeping Krishna consciousness, the one consciousness which has become dormant, our pure love for Krishna, our pure desire to serve Krishna has become dormant, and we have developed unwanted desires or anarthas. Those unwanted desires have to be purified. Then only one can prevent himself from committing the sinful activity again. Unless and until the deep-rooted seeds of sinful activity, the deep-rooted desire or the inclination to commit sin and again is purified, till that time our atonement has no value. After atonement, sin no more. And that is only possible if sinful proclivity or sinful desire is going away. So therefore, just an atonement to wash away sinful reaction is not enough. One should perform atonement in such a way that sinful desire, sinful proclivity, the smallest seed hidden in the heart gets thoroughly purified and washed away. That is called as awakening of dormant Krishna consciousness. Please, students are requested to memorize this definition. Awakening of dormant Krishna consciousness. That is called as real prayaschita. Now, what are the different ways of prayaschita? What is the process of atonement? How to actually purify oneself? So there can be two kinds of process, the Jnana Marg and the Bhakti Marg. The traditional and the slow process and the fast process. But before that, atonement. Before knowing the process, different kinds of process one should know. Atonement involves coming to the real knowledge, the real senses, what is right, what is wrong, by tapasya. Just like somebody is so much addicted to drugs, intoxication, to LSD, marijuana, or maybe alcohol. So it is a tapasya. It is an austerity. Tapasya refers to austerity. This word tapasya, austerity or penance, refrain oneself from something which you like to do, which is not good for you. So he says, you refrain from alcohol and first come to real senses. Somebody has drunk so much alcohol, first bring him to real senses by refraining from alcohol, which will be a difficult task. So coming to real knowledge by tapasya, refrain from things which are putting oneself in the bodily concept, in the material concept of life, in the enjoyment concept of life. So invoke oneself to real knowledge. Now, what is the definition of tapasya? Since tapasya is supposed to bring us to the platform of real knowledge, just like refraining from alcohol wakes up a person to what the reality is, how I have spoiled my liver, how I have spoiled my lungs, or whatever the case might be. Definition of tapasya. Again, that refraining from enjoyment properly defined. What is that? Definition of tapasya. There are two definitions given in the purport as per Srila Prabhupada's purport, and Srila Prabhupada also gives Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's purport. So we have Srila Prabhupada's purport. A methodical training according to certain regulative principles to revive original knowledge. A methodical training. Just like is a society called as Alcoholic Anonymous. If some alcoholic person takes shelter of them to get rid of this habit of too much indulgence in alcohol, there is a system. They are given counseling by experienced counselors. There is a group of people who encourage each other by personal experience. Gradually the dosage is reduced. Gradually the indulgence in alcohol is reduced. So it's a methodical training. And gradually your original personality is revived, free from all kinds of addiction. So it is a methodical training according to certain regulative principles to revive original knowledge. Similarly, if you or me are absorbed in the bodily concept, for us to get out, systems are designed. How slowly and gradually we can purify ourselves. So please remember this, a methodical training according to certain regulative principles to revive original knowledge. Three factors are there: methodical training, regulative principles, so it has to regulate, methodical to regulate, and reviving original knowledge. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions, to practice resisting six demands or urges. Six demands or urges is called as tapasya. And such a person is called as tapasvi, to practice resisting six demands. So if you try to memorize this, the first is a methodical training, regulative principles to revive real knowledge. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, to resist the six demands or urges is tapasya. Such a person is called as tapasvi. And then we have further, so we already discussed the process of atonement involves tapasya. What is the definition of tapasya? Now what is the process of tapasya? So tapasya is supposed to bring us to real knowledge. We have already seen that. And now we have to see two methods of tapasya to revive real knowledge. We have standard traditional method of tapasya and Rupa Goswami's recommended method. So if you see here in the purport, this paragraph, real atonement involves coming to real knowledge. We already discussed that atonement has to bring you to the platform of knowledge. Just like after giving the intoxication, one comes to real senses. Who am I? What is my identity? For this, there is a standard process. When one follows a hygienic process, it does not fall sick. A human being is meant to be trained according to certain principles. Such a methodical life is described as tapasya. Like that. One can be gradually elevated to the standard of real knowledge or Krishna consciousness. So what is real knowledge? Krishna consciousness. So this is, what is real knowledge? Krishna consciousness. Conscious that I am spirit, soul, part and parcel of Supreme Lord Krishna, meant to perform eternal service to the Supreme Lord Krishna. So, going back, what is the standard traditional method of tapasya? Benefits. It gradually elevates one to real knowledge, Krishna consciousness. Gradually. What are the different aspects of this process? tapasa brahmacharyena shamena cha damena cha. Shamena cha damena cha. Satyam shauchabhyam. Satyam shauchabhyam. So there are several aspects to this. This is all given in the third para of the purport. If you see here, tapasa, practicing austerities. Then we have brahmacharyena, celibacy. Then controlling the mind and senses, shamena cha, damena cha. Then giving up one's possession in charity, tyaga. Then avowedly truthful, satyam. And shauchabhyam, cleaning and practicing yogasanas by keeping clean. These are the standard processes. So if you see in the next slide, this is mentioned. Practicing austerity, celibacy, controlling the mind, controlling the senses, giving one's possession in charity, being avowedly truthful, keeping clean, and practicing yogasanas. These are the details of the traditional process. Now Parikshit Maharaj didn't like this idea also. And Shukdev Goswami understood. So he explained after telling this idea that Shukdev Goswami explained, although this is a purificatory process, but this will at the most, this is something like burning the dried leaves of the creepers around the tree of material existence. The creepers, the lower creepers, just burning the dried leaves. But what about the deep, deep going roots of the creepers? They do not get burnt. Similarly, this process may wash away the external sins. But what about the deep-rooted desires? Are not fully purified. It's a very gradual process. So therefore, the next process is recommended, Rupa Goswami's recommended process of tapasya. Especially which is very helpful for the age of Kali, for the modern age. What is the benefit? Previously it was gradual elevation to real knowledge. Here one easily surpasses all other practices. What are the practices involved? First of all, if one is fortunate, Brahmanda Brahmita Kona Bhagyavana Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lada Bija. If while traversing this material creation, somebody like you and me come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master, most of the work is already done. As soon as you come in touch with spiritual master, Kona Bhagyavan Jiva, somebody who is very fortunate, Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatati Siddhaya. Bhagavad Gita 7.3 says, out of thousands of men, somebody endeavor for perfection. Yatatam api siddhanam, and out of those who endeavor for perfection, Kaschid Yatati Siddhaya, very few can actually know the truth. So it is a great fortune if somebody comes in touch with Krishna and is pure devotee. And then after that, someone has to follow the regulations given by him. Here we have 4 basic regulations. No illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating, no intoxication. And then one has to engage in the service of the Supreme Lord. So coming with pure devotee, following the rules and then engaging in service, the positive service, that is the fastest. One can easily surpass, as it says, all other practices. Easily surpass. So again, look at the practices. What are the practices? Pure devotee, the process of regulations, and positive service to Krishna. Coming in touch with pure devotee, then association, regulatory principles, and engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord. That is Rupa Goswami's recommended process. And we can see it is clearly mentioned here. However, if one is fortunate enough to get the association of a pure devotee, he can easily surpass all the practices of controlling the mind by mystic yoga process. Simply by what is a simple process? Simply by following the regulatory principles and engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord under the guidance of spiritual master. This easy process is recommended by Rupa Goswami. This easy process easily surpass all other processes. So till now we discussed what are the 9 stages of bhakti. We have also discussed how each verse of nectar of instruction corresponds to a process of bhakti. We also discussed what is the process of atonement, or before that, how mind and sense control is the first step. Then we also discussed what is the process of atonement. How the karma kand, just a simple prayashchit will not do. The dormant Krishna consciousness has to be awakened, and for that there is a gradual traditional process, but that is also not complete. Then we have the bhakti process of the Rupa Goswami's process, which is an easy process, surpasses all other processes, as it says, easy process. And the practices involved there we discussed. After getting conviction of the Rupa Goswami's recommended process of mind and sense control, we understood how it is so very important to follow Sripad Rupa Goswami. How it is so very important to follow Srila Rupa Goswami's advice, which takes us gradually from the first stage of bhakti, Shraddha, to the last stage of bhakti, that is Prema. All glories to Srila Rupa Goswami. So now we will discuss each and every urge separately. The urge to speak, the urge of the mind, the urge of the genitals, the urge of the belly, the urge of the tongue. We will discuss step by step, and thus we will cover text 1. Keeping in mind our theme, that mind and sense control is the most first important step, and Rupa Goswami's recommended path is the best path to achieve such mind and sense control. So to climb this first step of bhakti, we will follow the advice of Rupa Goswami, who says one who controls these urges is qualified to make disciples all over the world. Jai Shri Rupa Goswami ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.